everybody. Jay Myers.
Thanks, Blair. Blair is the guy that approved our first app in about a 3-sentence email. We submitted it in 2012, and he said, everything looks good on my end, approved. It's a very different time now getting an app approved. We're actually going through a process of one right now and completely different. I was like, man, I miss when Blair would just email and say, yep, good to go. So, okay, this is up here, and I just want to make sure, point that there. Where do I stand that you guys can kind of see? Okay, real quick, I'll just tell you a little bit about Bold, and then I'll jump right into it. And the only reason I'm telling you a bit about Bold is to give some context. So, as Blair mentioned, we do go way back. I started selling on Shopify in 2009 as a merchant. Harley told me at one time it was store number like 6,000 something. So really early on Shopify. In 2012, started building. We launched our first app for Shopify. So we started. This is Eric in here? Yeah, there's Eric. He's one of the other co-founders. Eric hasn't seen this slide deck, so he doesn't know the secrets I'm sharing. He's probably I'm gonna be in trouble after this. But anyway, so this is what the App Store looked like in 2012 when we launched our first app. Blair would remember this. Did you design this? Looks like I did. This is beautiful. I miss those wooden shelves. We launched our company in my basement. We grew quite fast and super fortunate back then to, the times were very different. This is one of our first buildings, outgrew that in about 8 months. Built another building that was like 4,000 square feet, outgrew that in another 9 months or so. Moved into the city, became Manitoba's fastest growing tech company at one point. Bought a 28,000 square feet building, which we're not using now because since COVID, that made us completely remote. Grew to, at one point we hit over 400 people. We've downsized a little bit since then. Opened an office in Austin, opened another 18,000 square foot building in Winnipeg. We've had over 800,000 people install our apps at some point. At one point we had 36 apps in the App Store. Today we have 8. We've become a lot more focused over the years. We've made a ton of mistakes. We've done some things right that we figured out that work, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. So before this talk, I sat down and I made a list of like, okay, what do I share? There's literally so many. I boiled it down to 4 because Blair said I have 25 minutes. I think I can get to 4 really good ones. And I always say, if you go to a conference and you come back with one takeaway, that's good. And I promise you that each one of these things that I'm going to share with you, like if you're doing, they have the potential to 5 to 10x your app business. Like each of these, if they're implemented, can be $1 million thing. So you don't have to do all 4, just one. And even not just from me, but from this whole conference. So let's start with the first one. What I'm not going to talk about, all this stuff is important. What I am going to talk about is very specific things that we learned that work to grow our app business. So let's get into the first one. So activation rate, just for those to clarify, activation rate is when someone installs and they are during a free plan and they become a paid user. That is what we call activation. I think that's generally the term people use, but some people call it something else. But that's so activation rate. We found something that took a cohort of users from 35% to 86%, which is 35% of these users, these merchants, were becoming paid. We did something different, and then 86% of these merchants became paid. And if you learn this one thing, this will double your paid users. That was in one app. Now, this isn't across all merchants that install the apps. This is only like a certain cohort, and then we looked at the exact same cohort and this different thing we did, which I'm going to tell you in a second. It affected some apps differently. So we have a number of apps. These are just kind of 3 that highlighting here, but every single one, it had a positive impact on, some more than others. But across all of our apps, this thing that I'm going to tell you about increased our activation rate on average 34 to 63.5%. And you might think, well, activation's easy to increase. You can have all kinds of incentives and different things. So we looked at the 1-year retention of the exact same cohort and what this thing that we did to that cohort. And it went from 23% to 73%. So it didn't just turn more people into paid users, it made them stay around longer. Okay, so this thing that we did increased our activation 35 to 86 and our 1 year retention 23 to 73%. Anybody guess what it is? Any guesses? What's that? Early plan? No. No guesses? Okay. The difference in this cohort from this cohort is they talked to our customer service team at least once. So we can segment out our customers, and we ran a report on every merchant that had talked to customer support at least one time. That is the difference in the activation rate, and that is the difference in the retention rate. Now, some of them might have reached out upset. Some of them might have reached out for onboarding. Some of them might have reached out with a question. It's just they talked to customer support at least once. So now there's a lot of different ways you can get people to talk to support. You can there's different strategies I'm not going to get into, but if you know that a merchant talking to support has this kind of an impact, then go and build out strategies to get them to make it easy, which is interesting. And we at Bold, so one of the other co-founders over there, Eric, he'll remember this. Our first maybe 3 or 4 hires was support. Typically, when you're building an app, it's developer. How do we not do the support? How do we use AI for support? How do we send people to our support docs? We did the exact opposite. And so that's been a massive, massive impact. And so it's not just about support is great for activation and retention. Like if you left here right now and implemented a way that you got more people to talk to support at least one time, that the whole conference is a win. But support is so much more than that. It's a moat, and support is something that people can't copy. They can copy your man. We've literally had our apps copied, even the meta fields and the like the classes, like the word for word. We've had our apps copied, and there's people out there that will do that, but they can't copy our customer service. They can't copy how we help merchants. So it's very hard to copy. Support is what gets you your reviews. I don't know if anyone was at PJ from Judge Me's talk earlier today. People review people. They don't review companies. So it gets you positive reviews, and it also stops negative reviews. So there's I don't have that exact stat up here, but for people that have reached out to support, they're way less likely to leave a negative review because they've had an interaction. So there's a bit of a relationship. They're going to give you some grace. And if something goes wrong, the app breaks or something, they'll reach out to the support team because they've talked to you at least once. So it stops the negative reviews too. Mentioned this already. They have merchants. We notice in all of our reviews, people call out a person. They're like, "Thank you, Steve is awesome. Sarah saved my day." We've had people say, "Ron, I would marry Ron. He's the best." And like it's they don't say like Bold is great. They're reviewing the people. And support is one of the only ways. It turns your merchants into your referral channel. And there's a lot of data on if you have a viral coefficient. I won't go deep into this rabbit hole, but of at least 1 or higher. Like some merchants might refer 5 people, some might refer 0, but if it's 1.0001 or higher, you'll have that kind of healthy hockey stick growth, right? And so the biggest way people get referred is through other merchants. It's the number one thing they trust is other merchants, and that starts with support. And then the last thing I'll say about support before I get to number 2 is it's one of the biggest ways to drive net dollar retention, which hands up who would like know their net dollar retention number off the top of their head. Is that something that most people know, like they track, like if I said like, what's your app's LTV? They would have a number for that. If I said, what's your churn rate? They would have a number for that. Net dollar retention is the value of a user over time. So let's say you have an app that's $59.99 a month. Users install it, but let's say 10% of users uninstall it, but 10% of users upgrade to a $79.99 a month plan. You would have, if it worked out to be the same, you'd have a net dollar retention of 100%, which means even though you lost some users, you gained some users became more valuable. Shopify in their quarterly reports often report they call it negative churn, which is you can say negative churn, negative dollar churn, or you can have a positive net dollar retention. So And I can tell you, like, it's one of the main things investors look at. They look at, do you have a positive net dollar retention? It means, can you get a customer and make them more valuable over time? And the customers that talk to support have a drastically higher net dollar retention, because it's not just supporting them. They're getting them to upgrade. They're recommending other apps. Like, it's a number one driver of net dollar retention. Okay. Oh, and this is one thing that, like, we're actually testing right now is, and we're seeing good results so far, but I can't say for sure it works. We're literally testing it right now, is making onboarding potentially mandatory or very hard not to do it. So when you install an app, because we know how valuable the users are when they onboard, making it part of the onboarding, like step one, schedule your onboarding. So something to try to test with. It will frustrate a percentage of the users, but the ones that do it will be much more valuable. So it's something that worth trying. Okay, so this is the first thing we learned. Second thing, this is a graph of, I took out the numbers so Eric didn't kill me, of what the revenue numbers are over here, but this is a real graph of one of our apps. And what this represents is a revenue cohort. So in January, February, March 24, users that installed in this month are worth that much, and that's continually going up. So like if there's someone still installed from that month, that cohort is slowly getting higher, okay? We did something, oh yeah, and just, I know it's like my pet peeve when people show a graph and they zoom into one little tiny part and it looks really exaggerated. So just so you know it's not exaggerated, the average revenue per month, merchant revenue per month in these since September is 470% higher than the previous months. So we did something that made the average merchant 470% more valuable right here. And I know Blair told me we're not supposed to mention Mantle at the Mantle event, but we did implement Mantle Flex Billing at this point. And it's not just about Mantle Flex Billing, it's broader in general. These are still increasing over here as well too, because someone who installed in February, if they're still using the app, those numbers on the right are still going up. Like this was from a couple weeks ago. If I checked right now, that might be like 473% higher. So what flex billing is, it is, you could build it yourself. It was just easier to do through Mantle, but essentially it's merchants accept a higher, the ability to charge like $1,000 a month, even though they're on like a $39 plan, and then we can upgrade them seamlessly without them having to re-accept the charge, because there was a ton of friction. And so if you have spikes, if like usage and different things, it just makes it really easy to scale users up plans, and we've seen incredible results from it. So the thing that we learned though is pricing is one of the biggest levers we can pull for growth. And it wasn't just that, there was a number of other things we learned around pricing. And the broader story of this is pricing is often an afterthought. It's often something that like you build your product and then it's like, okay, shoot, now what do we price this thing? Pricing needs to be thought about like in the core of the product from day one. It's not something that's like build it now, what features could I gate and how can I just slap on some different tiers. It's needs to be thought about as part of the whole user experience, build it in a way that makes sense. So from day one, you need to think about pricing. We think about this a lot at Bold, and I don't know if this is the right term for it, but I call it XY pricing. Essentially, you always want pricing that has usage and features that drive customers, merchants up. If you have just usage, merchants will refer to you as a tax on their revenue, which happens to us. Like we, for a long time, like our subscription app, for example, is very usage based, and will sometimes, well, they're just taxing our revenue. And so if you don't have features that go along with the usage, they just hone in on the usage and they just feel like you're taxing the revenue. So you really have to have both. That was a big thing we've learned. And once we, on the ones that we really implemented this well, it's made a massive impact on the revenue. Value-based pricing, I think most people know what this is, but we've screwed this up a lot over the years, and we've started to get it right. And when you have your pricing as close to the value as possible of what the merchant gets, you can almost charge anything. And so whatever the value is that your product brings, if it's, we'll just take upselling, for example. If it's upselling, the value is you made the merchant more money, you got them more sales, increased AOV, number of different things. So as close as you can price to that versus, I'll tell you one of the mistakes that like we've made over the years is we originally charged by like number of views, or sometimes it's like API calls or a different use it. Like that's not value to the merchant. They don't care about that. They just care how much money they're making. So you can probably get away with 3 or 4 times higher charge if your pricing is exactly aligned with your value. Don't charge by API calls, orders. Now, the one thing I will say, if you do have good value-based pricing, you can get away with buckets of, say, API calls, which is a horrible thing to charge because the merchant doesn't even know what that is. But you could say something like, okay, here's my different tiers, basic, premium, you get different features, more value. And this one comes with 10,000 views or 10,000 API calls. This one comes with 20,000. So you can bake in, and that's the XY pricing. But if you make it just off of usage, you'll piss your merchants off. And then really, really important is show your value. If you called your merchants and you talked to them and you said, what could I do? I think I might have this on another slide, but I'll say it now. What could I do to charge you $2,000 a month, let's say, or 10,000 or whatever you're charging right now, pick some number 10 times higher and say, what killer feature would I have to charge you $2,000 a month? I've started asking merchants this, and unanimously every single one will say, well, if you did this, made me more money, and if I could see clearly what you're making me, I'd pay you whatever. And so a lot of times big mistakes we've made is we haven't shown the value in the app. It's driving revenue, it's increasing sales, but it's not in the face of the merchant. So show what, even down to potentially like, what is the ROI? So like I've seen some apps do this and it's pretty awesome. It's, if the app is $100 a month and it's driven an extra 10,000 in revenue, that's a 10x ROI. So like put that in the corner. So just show your value. You can't charge for it if you don't show it. There's so much more to pricing. I'll throw these all up here real quick, just in case anyone wants to take a screenshot. But like, there's lots that you can say here about how you price. Consider it can be a launch strategy. We see a lot of times when you're launching, make it free, get installs, get reviews, and then scale. Keep it really simple. And actually, I shout out to, is he here? Yeah, Jonathan Kennedy's right here. You guys should talk to him. He runs App Store Research, which is a fantastic tool to get real merchants to review your apps. You can interview them. They'll use your apps. They'll take screen recordings of it. We've learned a ton from it, and run your pricing by them. I am blown away how I use other apps too. I help manage Shopify stores, family members, and I install apps, and I'm confused by pricing. I literally sometimes install an app and I can't, and then I'll message the founder of the app because I know them. I'm like, dude, I can't figure out your pricing. It's like I see orders, but I see this. Like, just I can't figure out. I installed one last week, messaged them, and he's like, dude, that's such good feedback. We've never heard a merchant like explain it to us yet. So use tools like App Store Research, and not just to use your app, but to go through your pricing, because the pricing page is one of the biggest drop-off pages when people install an app. They go through accept scope, accept pricing. That's a huge drop-off point because pricing is confusing. And then I talked a little bit already about asking features what they would pay. So, and don't be afraid to increase prices. Blair might not even remember this. So back in like 2013 or 14, we had an app, we still have it, product discount. And I think we were charging $5.99 or $9.99 a month at the time. And Blair messaged me, he's like, hey, can you guys try charging $99? And I was like, okay, sure. He's like, let's just try it. So we changed the price to $99 and we got more installs. Pricing is more than just a price. It's a positioning. So don't be afraid to increase and test. Sometimes people won't install your app because it's too cheap. They think this is a guy in his basement, which we were, running an app and charging $9.99 a month, right? So, okay, third thing. I want to tell you about this guy. His name is Bobby. I'm going to actually go see him tomorrow down in Dallas. He is one of our subscription customers, and Bobby is a guy that runs his company is blindbarrels.com, just a salt of the earth kind of guy. Played football in college. I've kind of become friends with him over the years. Bobby is, when I write an email, when I write marketing copy, I'm writing to Bobby. And it's so easy when you like write a LinkedIn post or write something like, "Hey, big news, got this new feature, this, that." And then I think, would I talk to Bobby that way? I wouldn't. I would be like a total knob if I talked to Bobby that way. So I always picture Bobby in my head when I'm everything. And it's not just when I'm writing content. So I know it's a little sacrilegious to cross out why on Simon Sinek's book there, but like to me, once you can have your why right, but if you don't have your who right, it all falls apart. And so when you're thinking about your who, it should impact every area of your app. It should impact how you write your emails, how you design your website, your landing pages, your in-app copy. When you write support docs, write to them. Speak to your audience and speak to so I actually like to get it right down to a person, and I would print off a picture of that person and I would put it on the wall. And every time you write something, go, would I talk to Bobby like this? And so Bobby's kind of my threshold for that. So everything about it's not just copy, it's how you price everything. So who makes a huge difference, and we've overlooked that sometimes, and we just come across as generic and it doesn't impact anything. Okay, number 4, because Blair says I have a couple more minutes left. This is a chart showing activation on the left, lifetime value on the right, and there is something right here that caused both to go down. Okay, so we've talked a lot about like increasing revenue and activation and a thing. There's something we found out that drastically makes it go down, and I'm not going to ask you to guess. I'll just tell you. The thing that we found to make a massive drop in activation and lifetime value is about 30 minutes. 30 minutes from time to install to value, we started to see a massive impact in value. So a big metric that we track is what we call time to value. Every app has a different value measurement, but like, again, let's just pick upsell. Upsell is when they get their first upsell firing and they can see it and add to cart and it's working. Now it goes up drastically the closer it is to like 5-10 minutes is pretty good. And then it starts to really go down. There's people that like after 20 minutes, they just give up. And then the people that stick around for 40-45 minutes, they're the ones that got past the hard part and they're going to maybe stick around and it just starts to slowly go down. But it's the biggest killer of activation is time to value. So, so many things at this conference are about like the technology and everything about like how Shopify makes things so easy. And it's actually so easy to build an app now. You can use Gadget and Mantle and you can have an app up in 24 days. But what people aren't focusing on is how fast can that merchant install and have something live. So every single thing you can do to speed that up will increase your activation and the value of it. So we learned that every single app should have a clear definition of what that value point is, and then really strategize how fast you can get there, remove any unnecessary steps to streamline it. People are better at editing than creating. So like, let's take the upsell example again. Can you default an upsell with a generic product and then let them edit it instead of making them create it? People are better at editing, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be some kind of value that they feel out of it that they then, okay. Because the way that people install apps is they install 5 of them, they test them all, and then they pick whichever one they can get up and working the fastest. We see it all the time. Merchants don't just pick one app and say, I'm going to try this app for 5 hours. They install 5. Whichever one works the fastest, they throw away the rest. So these are the 4 things. There's been 20 things, but support, one touch point can increase your activation like 50%. Pricing, massive growth lever. You saw the difference there when we implemented flex pricing. Who pick someone and talk to them in everything you do, and time to value. So those are the 4 things that I can squeeze into this session. So if anyone wants to connect with me, I am always happy to help anyone with any questions about Shopify apps. And I think that's it. Did I keep it in time, Blair?
Not really, but it's okay.
Close enough.
I knew you wouldn't, so I planned for it. And I gave you your 5-minute warning when you had more than 5 minutes left. Just like last speaker.
You knew it.
I once saw Jay do like 45 minutes of Q&A after a talk at a conference. doesn't stop talking. Actually,
Sorry.
It's amazing. So we do have time for Q&A though, because Jay often gets like a lot of questions. We already have one. Matt, if you want to hit Jay with a quick question, if that's okay with Jay.
Does Bobby? No, he doesn't. No, but you know what? I'm going to show him this deck tomorrow. He's down in Dallas at Sub Summit. I'm flying there 6 a.m. tomorrow, and I'm going to see him, and we're going to have a glass of whiskey together because he sells whiskey subscriptions. So I will show him this deck, and he'll get a kick out of it. No, he doesn't. I've actually never told him. No. It might affect our relationship.
Hi, can you share more details on the A/B testing pricing?
Yeah. Everything from. So sometimes we just had this conversation even a couple weeks ago. Like, you can think about, okay, my price tables, my prices, like high, low, this, but take a step back when you think about A/B testing. Do you even need to show prices when someone installs the app, for example? So maybe you can get them to accept scope, do a couple things, see value, and then, so let's take the upsell example, create your first upsell offer, done. Now to publish it, accept a price plan. So it doesn't always have to just be, okay, I've got a price table, I want to try different prices, I want to try different features. Even where that pricing is implemented. One of the things we want to test at Bold is what Google Suite does when you install Google Workspace or set up Google Workspace. They remove all price plans and they just recommend one, which I think is really smart. They instead of showing 12 different plans and you got to try to figure out and get decision fatigue, they just show we recommend this plan, and then really small font it says view all other plans. But I'm willing to bet that like 90% of people pick the one they recommend. So that's something I haven't tested. But so not just testing prices, but testing the whole flow of it, I think it's critical. Like we see, I don't know, it's between 30 to 50% sometimes drop off at the pricing pages, and so it's one of the most important pages to test.
I think we have time for one more.
You guys have apps in all kinds of categories, but which one is the most successful, and why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's a good question. I mean, if you said like which one is like the most successful, our upsell app is the first one we launched in 2012, and I remember when we launched that app. That was the one that Blair emailed and said, "Yep, good to go." And then there's this funny story that like Toby said, "Hey, this is a hack of our APIs, and apps aren't supposed to do this. Apps are supposed to connect with third-party tools, and this app is living on the front end of Shopify." And there was a story, you might remember this, the Chive. Yeah, we talked about this yesterday at the panel a little bit, but like every time they would run a promotion, I think Shopify had around like 20 or 30,000 stores at the time. Like thousands of people would hit the Chive and our upsells would pop, and it was API calls, and it would take down all of Shopify, like literally all 30,000 stores down. And we worked really closely with Shopify to get them to like approve API usage on the front end of stores. They introduced API throttling and other things to make it possible. But like, I'm so proud that like, you look in the App Store now and every app lives on the front end of a store. This was the first app that did API calls, and we were just dumb and stupid, and we were like, let's just build like an app that makes money like for merchants. And we didn't even know we were breaking rules, and Blair luckily approved it. And
I didn't know they were breaking rules either. There was no rules. That's true.
So, and that app is still thriving today. It's on its like 5th iteration, and we've introduced like AI upselling different things. And so like to me, that's success because it's still growing and still doing well. I don't know if it's like made the most money or anything, but like I'm just really proud of that one. Yeah.
That's incredible. Thanks so much, Jay, for everything.
My pleasure.
Jay Myers.